Everybody knows who you are. And he said, well, say I'm an engineer and I like to travel. So he's an engineer and he likes to travel, and we'll be talking about that later. Don is the Capital District Humanist Society's co-executive director, and he has many administrative duties that keep the CDHS functioning as a well-oiled machine that it is. Okay, I'm sure you will agree with that. You may have noticed that recently he can be seen at the front of this room standing over there, and sometimes he will intervene if a question is too long or if that question develops into a conversation. And he will also call time if the program runs much past 2:45. So one of us today, if he's running past 2:45, is going to have to stop him because he won't. All right. He's not a pushy person, and that's part of his job, to interrupt and to keep this program running smoothly. Don recently went to Reykjavik, Iceland, to attend the Humanists International 2019 conference. The focus of that conference was a question, which is, what are the ethical questions for the 21st century? So today, Don will report to us the conference's findings, if any. Okay. With that, I give you Don Porterfield.
Josephine, thank you for that very nice introduction. Now, it makes me sound like I'm a real jerk. But that's okay. I'm not afraid to be vocal if I have to be, or make a fool of myself. So bear with me a minute while I start this thing. Come on. Okay, maybe it's working now. No. Okay, so I have a different screen here. That's okay. It's all good. As Josephine mentioned, I had the opportunity to go to the Humanists International Conference in Reykjavik, Iceland this year. I was sort of selfish in that because we have a family friend that lives there. You may have seen, if you saw a picture of a young man and 2 young boys, that's the family friend, which was very nice to be able to go someplace different. And while you're there, meet with someone you know and get around and see different stuff. That was the highlight of my time with him, because he took me to Reykjavik's landfill. Sounds crazy, but I was an environmental engineer, so there's some interest in it. But what I'd like to do now is talk about the conference that I attended. And very interesting conference. So the conference was held by sponsored by the Humanists International, which was formerly the International Humanists and Ethical Union. It was founded in 1952, it's as old as I am, and they recently renamed themselves. Every year they have a conference that's hosted by different organizations around the world. Last year's conference was in New Zealand. This year's conference was in Iceland, and it was hosted by, this is where I'm going to show I don't know how to speak Icelandic, Norwegian, Swedish, Denmark, any of those Scandinavian, Northern European countries. I said it. Called the Icelandic Humanist Association. They arranged all the speakers, they provided program help, they found the building, and it was, when you look at what the speakers that they had, it had a very Northern European tint and tilt to what they were saying. It took place over 3 days from May 31st through June 2nd. What I'm talking about today is what happened on June 2nd. So as we mentioned earlier, the topics that were discussed at the conference, the ethical questions, were about the environment, refugees, economic injustice, and democracy. There were 3 speakers on each topic. Each presentation ran half an hour or so. I'm probably going to, I'm going to give you my interpretation of what I heard, so bear with me. I'm trying to report what I heard, not necessarily my own opinion, but I'm trying to report what I heard. As well as many of you know, when you talk about something somebody else presented, you do interject your own opinion. So I'm going to I'll try to keep that to a minimum. At the start of this day, on the 31st, on June 1st, the president of Iceland addressed the conference. So, think about that. The president of a country was there. Of course, there's only 340,000 people or so in the country. And the head of the Iceland Humanists Association, her husband's a member of the parliament. So there was kind of a good connection. But it was still interesting, Nice to see. Okay, push the button. So the first topic we talked about was the environment, the presentations. You see the names. Ender Una Magnusdóttir is the general director of Laverne, which is an Icelandic Environmental Association. Sian Berry is a member of the London Assembly and co-leader of the Green Party in England or UK. Gilbert Jordisdóttir is a postdoctoral fellow at University of Iceland's Institute of Philosophy. And I'll say their first names again, and I'll butcher them. I'm glad they're not here to hear me. Ulder's topic was sustainability and the road ahead. She defines sustainability as development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the possibilities of future generations. You spent a lot of time giving examples of that. One thing she did talk about is, and mentioned, is she feels that sustainability is lagging behind where it should be because of several factors. First is short-term thinking. People just don't want to worry about what's going on today. Interest in money and short-term profitability, which again comes to short-term thinking. Focus on GDP as an indicator of well-being instead of other issues. And then not connecting with the natural world. And it's very simple. Her recommendation for turning around sustainability is just to flip all these on their heads. Instead of short-term thinking, and go back to this, I'm sorry, we'll get there in a minute. Instead of short-term thinking, think longer term. Tens, hundreds, thousands of years. And so don't worry about money so much. Make it a less important factor in our considerations. Instead of GDP, find a different measure to assess well-being. There's happiness indexes out there. There's you use education, health, whatever you think is appropriate. Find another issue, another measure. And then lastly, connect with the natural world. Don't spend our time buried in the screen. Think about what's going on around us in the world. She had a great op-ed cartoon there. At some national summit where you look at all the things that could happen if we try to create a sustainable world. And some critic in the back says, well, but if it's all a hoax, why are we doing this? For nothing. So, it's, something that she was pushing this out there to do. Alder believes that sustainable living and tackling climate change is scientifically sound, will deliver a much better society, and has been talked about for the last 30 years. I did make the caricature wall there. There was the organization hired a caricaturist, I guess is the right word, and she made lots of these things. And that's me on the upper right. Sitting next to me is a young woman from Ghana, and sitting next to her is a young gentleman who's from Brazil, originally from Brazil, but now in Romania. The people in the front and the lower, I don't know, I didn't meet them, but this was just kind of an example of a variety of people from around the world. Lots of different people who we think was very good. So, because even though each speaker had 30 minutes, I don't have that much time. So we're going to move on to the next one. Sian Berry is a politician and spoke like a politician, so that's me interjecting my comments here. She feels that environment is the ethical question of the 21st century. She spent quite a bit of time talking about the recent IPCC predictions that paint a very dark picture for where the world's going in terms of temperature rise, potential sea level rise, and climate impacts on water resources and crops. And I think one thing she did say that was very interesting is that the current environmentalist that is focusing on making things get worse more slowly is not an inspiring goal. But that's really what a lot of, from my own perspective, that's a lot of what we're seeing right now. By the time it gets out to public policy, you're just trying to make things not get bad too quick, as quick. So she ended with, some points to create a sustainable society. Need to get people involved. She's a politician, she wants to get people involved. Improve social justice, share resources, and bring capitalism to heel. This, I think, is her Green Party background coming to the fore. The third speaker on the environment was Gordberg Johannesdottir. Her topic was the glacier and me, understanding what it means to be human in the Anthropocene. A lot of her research is focused on looking at what's going on glaciers, as well as somehow involved with more artistic endeavors. One of the things she talked about and was stressed is that interacting with nature gives us all a sense of what it means to be human. As a species, we have a really hard time accepting climate change. On the one hand, we're in control, we're masters of the world, but yet the things we're doing in the Anthropocene, this man-made environment we live in, that's what causing climate change. And many of us, some more than others, are in a state of denial that things are changing or that we're causing those changes. Her time on the glaciers has given her a sense of her place on the planet and helped her, and don't get me wrong here, to melt into the earth. But she feels that we need to understand that people and nature are both processes that are influenced by the environment, and that we are both a threat and threatening to each other by our very actions. And she also had an interesting line that, cross movement speech topic. And she pointed out the increasing frequency and severity of storms is kind of nature's way of having its own Me Too moment. So it's kind of saying what's going on, why we're getting bad. So her recommendation is that we all need to be one with nature, whether by direct experience or music or art or other indirect means. So, all of us can't go out and stand on a glacier. There aren't that many I don't think we have glaciers real close here. But there are places we can go, whether, to get out and spend some time with the trees and the birds or the streams. And even if you don't go, there's still you can appreciate nature in other ways, through art, paintings, window, back porch, whatever works. The next topic that was discussed was refugees. And again, Porter Olafsdottir is a chairman of an association that works to help refugees in Iceland and abroad. Then there were other two speakers who are associated with the UN. Wilfred Buchhorn is the regional representative for the UN Refugee Organization, and I support Kristen Daughter is a gender and humanitarian specialist at UN Women. I hope, if anybody can say their names better than me, please speak up. Pardon? I'm trying, believe me. When Warren's discussion, he's been personally involved with refugees migration in Lesbos, which is an island off Greece, and in Iceland, and resettlement in Iceland. She spent some time in Lesbos, basically meeting refugees as they were arriving on boats from Turkey. And, she pointed out that she feels the greatest information, one of the greatest dangers for refugees is misinformation. And she raised the analogies that where, there's this boat coming to shore that's swamped with people. And there's people on the shore waving and whatever they're doing. And the refugees are, well, is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? Or should we go there? Should we not? They don't know really what the refuge is. Warren said that the best thing we can do for refugees is to make them feel welcome whenever we encounter them. So give them a sense of, be nice to people. Say hello, help them when you can. And she also recommended we be ready to defend refugees whenever possible, when they face conflict, whether it be in social media, or other methods. She did present an example of something a little more, something I don't know how many of us would be willing to deal with, but this picture on the upper picture, the woman the young girl in the white headdress on the right side of the photo is an Afghan refugee that her family's facing deportation from Iceland. I don't know all the reasons she may have explained, but I didn't pick it up. In her high school, many of the students there marched to support her and protest her being deported. And they earned an International Humanists Award from this, and that's them on the bottom during the conference. So, if you look, you can see this person as this person. Red hair is very easy. Red hairs and glasses are making it easy to pick out. Wilfred Bonham gave an overview of some of the worldwide refugee statistics and some of the issues that are faced. He pointed out there were over 68 million refugees worldwide in 2018. I hope that's the number. He told me that's what I wrote down. Anyway, it's a big number. Most of these refugees came from 3 countries: Syria, Afghanistan, and the Uganda, Somalia area, or others from developing countries. All these areas where there's some kind of conflict going on, where people are deferring. Most of the refugees are hosted by neighboring nations: Turkey, Pakistan, Iran, Lebanon, Jordan, et al. The respect for human dignity is slipping in many of these places. And refugees are housed. And he recommends we need to reestablish that big respect for people. His organization is working with another forum to try to help ease some of the pressures faced by refugees, as well as provide some additional help. He pointed out we need to emphasize and support the dignity and rights and shared humanity of refugees. This is a slide from a different presentation, but it still seems appropriate. Iris Warren Christendotter discussed the manners in which gender and nationalism issues impact refugees, specifically women and children, because that is kind of her specialty. She pointed out that one of the bigger issues facing refugees is lack of empathy. People just don't seem to understand. The people that are getting here don't understand. We all get involved in our own world, and it's hard for us to recognize what it means to have been torn up from your home, traveled hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, of miles, come someplace new and not know anybody, wonder how you're going to take care of your family. She says the decision makers need to recognize that they can't just worry about their own local issues the way they always do things. They need to recognize that when they try to do everything, well, this is the way we've always done it. Asylum seekers and refugees aren't going to fit into that. It's going to be given some cultural dynamics they really can't address. And again, she's grinding her own axe, so to speak, with her program, but she feels that women and children are often marginalized and just kind of put to the side. And it's a current thing in many societies, in a lot of things societies right now. We talk about cultural differences could cause a problem just to integrate. And she wanted to make sure that we do something wherever we can to convince decision makers to use different perspectives. And she points out in the caricature, sometimes unfortunately women are being used as a tool of war, a tactic of war. There was a panel discussion after each of the presentations, and I only included stuff for panel discussions for a couple of these presentations because it was ones that I thought were more interesting to know. First is about humanist refugees. Refugees that have a humanist outlook on life are typically at greater risk of attack in refugee situations. One, they don't fit, they may not necessarily fit in with the refugee community they're fleeing with, and where they're coming to, humanist philosophies may not be well accepted. Again, we read it earlier, and we need to stand up against the demonizing of refugees wherever it occurs, public debate, social media, talking to your neighbor, whatever it is. And finally, neighbors can provide the best support for refugees. I know there are organizations here in Albany that help support the refugee community. I don't know if any of you involved in those. If you are, I applaud you. If not, and you're interested in something to pursue. The third topic talked about was economic injustice. And Guðmundur Oddsson is from the University of Iceland. Margaret Brynjarsdóttir is another person from the University of Iceland. And Polly Toynbee, who some of you may have seen or heard if you watched BBC News, is a social commentator that used to be the BBC's social affairs editor. I know her face and name were familiar when I at the conference. This person, Guðmundur, presented several views of economic inequality and injustice. Some of these have been around for years, many years. From a philosophical standpoint, he feels inequality means if you have stuff, you're in good shape. If you don't, well, you just struggle to survive. And he felt that inequality is a moral problem because it undermines other things that we value. One of the topics he talked about was a theory that's known as the dominant ideology. I believe this is something going on a lot in Europe. First, everyone has ample chances of success. Everybody out there, the word is, we can all succeed. And a person's social position is a result of their efforts, rather than the structural factors. And because each of us is responsible for our own success and what we achieve, this is justification. Well, if you don't do good, it's your fault. It justifies inequitable outcomes or social inequality. I like the shirt here. He had a picture. I'm not poor, I'm just pretty rich. How many people think that or have thought that? Guðmundur's take on the Pickney's book, Capital, is that under normal conditions, inequality will increase. I'm kind of highlighting picking some cherry picking stuff here because some of these presentations were very intense and hard to follow. Talked about the American dream as that ability and effort equals success, implies that our choices make a difference, but none of us really have much choice in where we were born, when we were born, or whom we were born to. A thing called the birth lottery. And because we can't control that birth lottery, as well as a lot of other factors, Guðmundur's kind of activist here, thinks that it feels we're in a rigged system and that the only way to improve it is to rise up. Didn't say exactly how to rise up, but a variety of ways how you protest and change things. Now, I apologize for the next video, the screen, but it talks about meritocracy. Economic injustice. Ayla's presentation was about inequality in a meritocracy. She spent a lot of time talking about that meritocracy is based on the idea that who has the most skills or is better at stuff will get more stuff. And this is kind of summarized in this picture here. I got mine because I'm good. But then she points out, but we all start playing on a level playing field. The gentleman on the left of this, he's got a pretty straight, easy way from the starting line to the goal. He's got hurdles that really don't get in the way of each other. Nice clear shot. The woman on the right, she's got a ball and chain on her foot, landmines, fences, all kinds of stuff to get past. So, while they may be able to start at the same place and get to the same goal to get to the same place, for some it's much easier than others. You know that skills in some areas doesn't make that person more deserving. rewards her well. So this is kind of picking on meritocracy is it's really not a good thing. And you know, the enormously wealthy are not more deserving than the poor. You know, her caricature was, world isn't fair, but unfortunately most of us are destined to be mediocre. So I guess all the children aren't above average. The next speaker on economic justice is Paula Quimby. She feels that growing inequality is an indication of and contributor to many other programs. She tied a lot of her discussion to Brexit because she's British, and it's certainly an issue there. I know when I was there with the TV on the Sky News, and it was a very common topic. You know, she feels that inequalities played a large role in the Brexit vote. The idea that better educated voters wanted to stay in the EU, lesser educated voters wanted to leave the EU, and those that voted for the Brexit would be most harmed by Brexit. Sounds kind of familiar to some thoughts about going on in recent elections in this country. And she pointed out she feels that current UK policies are mimicking conservative US policies to demonize the poor and bless the rich, which is, she feels that the UK has become one of the most unequal countries in the EU and has led to a tendency to undermine social organizations. You know, she pointed out that this is, in the EU or UK, it's one of the first, looking at times in the younger generation, is one. Your first generations did not do as well as their parents did. The last and fourth topic was democracy. Speakers here were John Olafsson, Torbjörn Jans from Iceland, Torbjörn Jansson is from Stockholm University, and Brian Klaas is lectures at University College London. He's also columnist for Washington Post. The button and there it goes. Jan's topic was democracy's moral challenge, population, authoritarian, and liberalism. We spent some time talking about each of these three isms. He defined populism as a rhetorical style that challenges the establishment, claims that people are the legitimate, should be source of authority, or are they the legitimate authority. And he's pointed out that some people consider populism a form of degraded democracy. In Europe, he feels that right-wing national populist movement is a Eurocentric point of view. So I could take the analogy to this country too, that in this country, populism is a very white American point of view. Democracy continues with the discussion too, with talk about authoritarianism. There's 4 indicators you talked about: rejecting or not valuing democratic rules, denying the legitimacy of political opponents, tolerating or encouraging violence, and abandoning civil liberties. And flash up some examples of authoritarian politicians. I think most of us can name them. You know, I believe that's Marie Pence. We all heard of Donnie. This is Turkey's president, Vlad, and I'm not sure who this is. Does anyone know? Orban from Hungary. Thank you. I knew someone would know. True, but there's only so much room on the slide. The last topic he talked about in democracy types he talked about was liberalism. Well, in his mind, it's about the use rather than the transfer of power. And the idea of liberalism should impose limitations on whoever has legitimate power through elections. His caricatures are very nice. Politicians lie, and they lie all the time. I think in this country it's even more true with our current president. My own political opinion. And that many times politicians fear the public actually making decisions. They don't want the public to do that. So the challenge of democracy, which is ongoing, is how we move power to the people. And the key way to do that is participation by an informed public. We just can't throw up our hands. We have to stay involved. stay abreast of what the issues are, and participate. The next speaker on democracy was Torberg. Yeah. This topic was global democracy, the case for a world government. And he is from Sweden, so you have to remember that. So his argument for world government in 2 steps is that we need a world government to address collective existential threats. And we'd like that government to be democratic if possible. Some of the things that a world government could accomplish are ending war through a well-governed, well-ordered international state, achieving global justice through regulation, not transfer, and creating a sustainable environment. You can read the idea in the caricature, you need global democracy to address global collective issues. He raised the issue of the tragedy of the commons and talked about that, and specifically talked about the environment. The commons is a term that's thrown around in politics, and I guess the environment's a good example. And then everyone, to talk it through that, everyone lives in the environment. It's all around us. But it does cost to sustain that environment. We can, as individuals, we can avoid the cost to sustain that environment by not contributing. We drive a mega land yacht, or whatever, or we leave. But at the same time, if we want to sustain the environment, the goal is we like all you people to contribute to saving it, but I don't want to. So that's free riding, and but we can't. If you're going to have a system that works, you can't be punishing people. You have to be able to punish free riders. But to be able to punish free riders, you have to have a powerful collective authority, somebody overall, some way to have teeth in it. So, he's very much into I think his location and speaks well here, and he's learned from that. The final speaker we had for democracy was Brian Klaus. Brian's topic was the global crisis of democracy. He pointed out that people living in Western democracies don't realize how lucky we are. He also pointed out, even though there's more elections worldwide, the world is becoming less democratic. Does that due to limited choices in election, authoritarian leaders that are still being elected? Like Putin got reelected. Yeah. Erdogan got reelected. The guy in Turkey? That is the guy in Turkey. Pardon? Talking about sandcastles, our democracy's sandcastles can be very simple to very complex, It's the point is about all these sandcastles, though, is that they can all still be diligent and stay on top of what's going on, stay involved, informed, and participate. Some points he pointed out here is that elected populist authoritarian leaders can warp democracy by keeping the public uninformed or misinformed. I heard that, and I couldn't, and again, this is my own political opinion driving into there, I couldn't help but think of Tommy. He seems to twist everything he says. And many times, right now what's also going on is because younger generations feel disenfranchised. They feel like, I can't do anything. They don't feel it's essential to live in a democracy. And unfortunately, she shows statistics that shows across the Western world, younger voters are participating less in elections. He did close by saying democracy is still better than other forms of government. The panel discussion, one point, the interesting point there, was that one of the people was asked what measures are ethical in response to bad government. And the panel's discussion was any and all measures short of violence are appropriate. So, you got bad government, do whatever you can. Just, don't go out in the streets with guns, though. That's probably not a good thing. That concludes all of the presentations I heard. Just some of my impressions from what was going on at this event. It was a great opportunity to meet humans from around the world. They told you the people from Ghana, a lot of people from England, people from the UK, a lot of people from Iceland, people from Eastern Asia, people from Asia, Africa. You know, I learned a lot from some interesting speakers. I wish I could say more about what they did, but I don't want to keep you all here all afternoon. Also, if you're looking at any of the slides before it, Iceland's a great place to visit. You know, it's a small country, 340,000 people, and I was very fortunate. I'm told that it had blue skies while I was there. I didn't manage to get a sunburn. Yeah, that's silly. And you know, this was a worthwhile experience. I'd recommend to anyone that's interested in going. And speaking of that, they announced the next 4 Humanists International conferences. Next August, it's going to be in Miami, Florida. Pardon? Well, but they said it's going to be, you can get your hotel in the same room the conferences, so you never have to go outside. You can live the true American life. In 2021, it's going to be in Kathmandu, Nepal. I'm interested, but I have the flight. In 2022, in Glasgow, UK. Frank and Dee, I assume you're going?
When is it? I
don't have the dates. It's Glasgow, I figured you'd go.
Yeah. It might not be in UK.
Well, this is what they said at the time. This is what came right off the slide. And in 2023, it's going to be in Copenhagen. Just one final thought I want to add before we close. This young woman here, Julia Ismail, is a member of the HI Board of Directors. She's currently in hiding in Pakistan. She went back earlier this year, and the other board of directors were suggesting she not go. But she said she really needed to go because she's involved in a lot of stuff. She's been very active in human rights and women's rights campaigns, and has been detained several times in the past. When she arrived in Pakistan this last trip, she was taken into custody. Her passport was taken from her. She was released, but right now she's in hiding. Her passport's been released to one of the embassies there, but you know, the board's very concerned about her safety. You know, I think this is an interesting note in that in this country, we don't face a lot of risks from our beliefs and our choices to be active, participate. And it shows the passion of some of the people that are involved in organizations around the world and some of the things they're fighting for. And what she's doing for is, you know, human rights and women's rights, which is all important. And she lives in a country where the government doesn't feel that way. So with that, that's all I had. There was a nice pig on the sidewalk in front of my hotel. So.
Did you go to the Venus Museum?
No, I didn't. There was only so much time, Frank. I did see that giant phallic symbol, church thing. Okay, the first question here was the immigration policy and procedures of the United States mentioned. If so, how were they treated? If they were mentioned, they were only mentioned in passing. I think I drew a lot from analogy, looking at what was said about how the U.S. is doing things. Next, any Middle East participants? Most of them live in authoritarian theocracies that punish atheism and apostasy, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, Somalia, Syria, etc. I don't recall meeting anyone specifically with the names listed. I know there are. On Sunday, there was a list of, as part of Humanists International business proceedings, they went through a list of organizations, and there were some new organizations from the Middle East that were admitted. One of the things they're struggling, HI struggles with, is they want to encourage humanist organizations and support them where they can, but in some countries, it's difficult for those organizations to become established. In some places, organizations have to register with the state, and that if you're registered as an organization that isn't well liked by the state, kind of puts a target on you. One of the concerns that they also talked about was that you can organize HI will recognize an organization that's not state recognized if that's appropriate in that country. But they have to balance that with if you're trying to organize a humanist organization and you get recognized by Humanists International, how sharp is the people, the government, the country you live to will look for people that might belong to those types of organizations. So, difficult but interesting stuff. Two questions here. Is humanism primarily social, global issues? Yes and more. It's the idea of that humanism is about reason, and that we're responsible for changing the world. In America, I thought it was stressing the separation of church and state. That's the way the Constitution was written. If you listen to the current conservative Republicans, they seem to be want to change that story. Sean Berry, a very new speaker. Is a humanist or merely a topical speaker? She was the speaker I was the least impressed by. She came across as a politician. Well, a little less of a politician than the president of Iceland. But still, she...
But were most of the speakers humanists, or were they from that discipline?
It really never came up. They were invited by the Icelandic Humanist Association, so they knew where they were coming. And the speakers that got invited, I suspect the Icelandic Humanists invited them because they had a relation with them somehow, whether it be through humanists or because the conference was held at the university, and they've asked the university if they knew anybody on staff could speak to anything. Okay, that's all the written questions. Any other questions? Are there any plans by Humanists International to support activists that are running into difficulty in their country of origin and might be subject to prison, death, jail because of their activities? Humanists International, yes, Frank.
May I answer the question?
You go right ahead.
There in fact is a program run by the Center for Inquiry called Secular Rescue, which I'm not involved in. And it addresses exactly what you're talking about.
They do. They did not address that specifically. I think what they do is whatever they can, primarily through informational campaigns, organizing protests, writing, I hate to say letter writing, but there were several every year they passed different proclamations supporting different causes and then spread those on. They do have an advocacy group that operates at the UN, like the American Humanist Society, I think Center for Inquiry has advocacy groups operating at the U.S. Congress. So there are things that can be done at different levels, but they're all, because we don't have, Humanists International doesn't have, for lack of better words, have an army or a bunch of money. You can only do what they can through social impacts to basically call out the situation and then wherever they can provide selective help.
So it sounds like the Center for Inquiry is more active than the humanists.
More than, Humanists International didn't talk about that type of action. Anything else? Yes?
How many people overall?
I think think there were, the day I, 2 days I was there were between 150 and 200.
Did you go to, I think it's called Cleveland, where the first democracy was born?
That was one of the pictures in the slideshow. I went past it. It's on the, I thought it was interesting, it was on the Mid-Atlantic Rift. So, and they talked about that, and I guess for a while, for many years, the Iceland Parliament stayed at that location until there was an earthquake. Funny thing, rifts have earthquakes?
Didn't that start like 1,000 years ago?
Yeah, it started in like 1900s, not 900s.
I know,
Yeah. And also, for those Game of Thrones fans, I didn't take a picture of it, wasn't very good, but the icefall in Game of Thrones is in that same area. The waterfall in Game of Thrones, not the icefall, the waterfall. Yes?
Did they mention at all the refugees from South America?
Not-
They're all talking about.
Not directly.
European only.
Yeah, you know, all the topics that were discussed and speakers were very Eurocentric. And I, with a few exceptions, and I kind of expect that. You know, the board has international members. Member from Nepal, members from Africa, a lot from UK and North and Scandinavian countries.
I was just wondering when they said, you know, there are so many refugees in the world, do they include?
He didn't give a count for that, but I'm sure it includes the numbers. I'm sure what Bjorn, I think that's his gentleman's name, is trying to do is pump up the numbers however he can, and they'll look for anything they can. When you have an agency, you want to do what you can to pump up the numbers so you get more money and notoriety, and makes it sound like you're doing a better thing. Yes, sir.
Are there any statistics that show that the younger generation is getting more involved in these issues? Is it static? Is it increasing or decreasing?
They didn't talk about that per se. The only thing they talked about younger generation was on the issue of democracy and whether if they're finding that a lot of, in several countries across the Western world, the participation of the younger voters in elections is decreasing. Yes. And it's, again, the speaker thought, is it because too many younger voters feel like, well, it's a rigged system. We see people like Donnie or whoever's in charge in Britain or the UK or Vlad, and like, you know, we can't do anything for them. We can't do anything about them. Yes, Sherry.
What was the age complexion of the attendees? Old like us?
A lot of old like us, but a fair amount of young people too. You know, the UK contingent was all fairly, you know, part of that was, I know the UK, some of the organizations had lots of staff to bring too. You know, we have maybe 100 members or on a good day. The Norwegian group has 10,000 or more members, or no more. UK has at least 10,000. Yes?
Well, it's our understanding that the structure of the humanist organizations, at least certainly in Scotland, it sounds like in Iceland and some of the other countries, is that the different groups like we are connected to the bigger organization and are not separate entities the way we are. So,
It varies. So that was one of the things that came up during the business meeting. This is that different organizations can join the Humanists International, and they classify membership based on whether you're a national or statewide located organization, or a local group like us is welcome to the party, but we don't get as much say. If that makes sense. But then our dues are less too. But yeah, they may be affiliated. It's like we're affiliated with the American Humanist Society or
right.
Association, whoever they are. So we're not part of them, but we're affiliated with them. And there are member organizations in Humanists International that are the UK-wide, but there are also other smaller organizations, local organizations within the UK that are members of the HI. I don't know the structure, whether or not, as you say, they all, how they fold up to each other. Yes, sir.
So I was interested in your take on the, what's the thought with the UK and the Brexit, and the fact that one of the speakers talked about how politicians don't want, people to have any kind of say, but there's a 54% vote that want to leave the EU, and they just can't seem to get something, the politicians just can't seem to kind of do what the will of the people was.
But then you have to remember too, that's what one of the other speakers talked, I don't know if it's the same speaker or a different one. Key to having an effective democracy is an informed public. Unfortunately, from what I know about the Brexit vote and the campaign leading up to it, there was a huge amount of misinformation / fake news associated with it. And I have a question from the back.
I want to make a comment to that. And it's something I hope to talk about it at our next social, about the movie Stateless, that a lot of this quote-unquote fake news sources and the Brexit campaign can be directly traced to Vladimir Putin, directly. There was a book published in 1997, this is how long ago, that's called Foundations of Geopolitics. And it's a book by Putin's Rasputin. Putin sort of, no, seriously, this guy is nicknamed Putin's Rasputin. He is a historian, and he is a consultant to lots of social organizations in Russia now, and his name is Alexander Dugin. And his program is outlined in that book, and it's been required reading in military academies in Russia for 20 years. The terrifying part about it, that there are steps to Russian geopolitical agenda outlined, and if you go through it, it's on Wikipedia,
Okay.
it's all over the place.
Thank you.
But Brexit is a direct step in that program.
Yeah. I had to step in, I'm sorry.
No, you're right. I'm sorry. I
See, I'll
jumped-
give you a jerk to anybody, ask my wife. She will probably admit that I'm really a jerk. Won't admit it, just complain. But yeah, to answer your question, it was, I think, Paul Lucas said, but then Brexit was, when it comes to the politicians trying to work out a deal for Brexit, from what I've seen in the news, they can't, it's hard to do what they've been asked to do. And it's not just up to the UK,
I know. There's another whole group there.
it's all over the world, and it ain't just as simple. Any other questions before Fran kicks me out?
I just
One more.
wondered, what color you preferred in those thermal pools?
Pardon?
What color did you prefer in the...
They were all pretty.
They color them by temperature. In the main house, they used to.
Oh, I didn't, okay, I don't know. I didn't see that, I just went to the one, the manufactured pool called the Blue Lagoon where I got a sunburn. It was, when your head's out of the water, it's cold, but the water's warm, and it's bright, so you walk over.
Nice sulfur smell.
No, not this one. This was geothermal wastewater. Okay, I think Fran's giving me the hook. Oh, boy. Thank you, Fran. Yet another cup. Thank you much.
Just a reminder, if you can post one of the